this thing in the lower left corner. I noticed that last one with the website. It says it's a typical Westpac LNG facility. And it's a very accurate title because they've never built an LNG facility. This is a computer rendering of a drawing of an LNG facility. So their typical facility is on paper only. And I don't actually know how many projects Westpac has on the go right now, but when you look at this impressive project map they have on the website, this is what a lot of those little buttons show. So I think a lot of their work is fairly aspirational. And in fact, they do list 3 specific projects on their website, on one of the top tabs. This is one of the 3, and they just withdrawn this plan. It's a controversial plan for an oil by rail facility in Pittsburgh, California, in the Bay Area. It faced fierce opposition, it's very controversial, and they've now backed away from it. So that's a bit about Westpac in the bigger world, and the specifics of the Tilbury project. So Westpac has an NEB license, like Owen said, for 3.5 million tons a year of LNG, which translates into them running 90 LNG tankers and 34 large LNG barges a year down the Fraser River. Westpac would be where the red dot is. The black dot up in the top is Fraser Surrey Docks. The green dot is the jet fuel terminal, and the blue dot is the nearest big residential development. That's Bridgeport Flats and Waterstone Piers. Is anyone here who lives down there on the Fraser River by chance? Because you do?
Further up the mouth.
Okay.
I'll live there,
Hopefully. Okay, so Westpac has an NEB license. In the spring, they applied to the Federal Environmental Assessment Agency. You may have been involved in that process of sending in comments to say this project needs an assessment and you should be in charge. In May, SIA announced there will be an environmental assessment, and a week later said BC will be in charge. So BC and Ottawa, BC is the only province that has an agreement with SIA whereby they can substitute. So one party can be in charge of the process for both parties, and the other party will use the results. That only happens in BC. So now BC is in charge of the environmental assessment, and to me that's the Fox is in charge of the handouts. No one can know about the BC government's obsession with exporting LNG. Okay, so we're now in this. So we're now in the scoping phase of that assessment process. Westpac has submitted a document to the BC government saying, here's what we want to cover in the environmental assessment. And we're now in the comment phase on that. So until next Monday, you have a chance to comment. And really, this is why we're here right now. So if you do one thing coming out of this session tonight, please go home and visit our website, which I'll talk about a bit more, and send in a comment. You don't have to be an expert. Some people here are extremely well versed in some aspects of the issues, but it's important you comment in general, and we'll talk about what you can comment about. So these cards have gone around. This has the URL for the website. You can get a quick sense of what the project is about and send your comment through that site. And we'll see it for you to the city council, to your MPs, to your MLAs, because the proponent right now in the government as well wants to engage us in a very, very narrow little bureaucratic process. Tell us what should be done about protecting the plants in the Fraser River's banks or the fishing river. What we're trying to engage in is a much broader political process to say, wait a minute, this has huge implications and you need to assess them all. So you've got to be involved in that. Okay, so this is a close look at the site. You can see the existing forest facility, that underway phase 1A expansion, Burns Bog back here in the background, Alex Fraser Bridge. These pilings here right now are where the Westpac dock will go. And this is an old forestry company, that was their dock. It ties into the forest expansion. Now you can see, I think it's clear to everybody that Fortis and Westpac are joined at the hip, and it's not a coincidence that these projects are side by side. Although Westpac sort of describes this as a brownfield site in the Fraser, it's a convenient place to build this thing, and so on and so forth. Let's talk a bit more about that Fortis expansion, because it's important that we draw that connection in this process, because they don't want us to. They want us to do this in a very piecemeal fashion. So Owen talked about the expansion that's underway right now, this sort of phase 1A expansion. It's small, and Fortis has already said that it's committed for use for BC ferries and for sending more gas up north and so on and so forth. And right now, as Owen said, the facility now is just used to sort of balance out demand. So this is a new project, but a small project. Those investor reports that Owen mentioned, This is an example of one from the spring. It talks about the phase 1B project, which is the next one, the one they want to build, but is under construction, and how big that will be. It's involved with this export contract with Hawaii that they're trying to negotiate, so it is tied to the exports that Westpac wants to do, but it's still fairly small. Fortis also talks about how much they can build on the facility overall, which is quite a bit bigger. So let's just compare all those things again. And this, it doesn't really matter what the units are. LNG proponents talk about things in all different ways. Cubic meters of LNG, or tons of LNG, or billions of cubic feet of natural gas that can be compressed into LNG. What's important is the comparison. So this is Fortis right now. They can compress 5 million cubic feet of natural gas a day. What they're building right now will take them to 33 million cubic feet a day. And what they are considering building, that next phase, is 133. So this is Westpac's NEB license. This is their proposal based on the number of ships they want to run. And this is Fortis's own estimated maximum size. You know, it's no coincidence that these are all the same size. So what's important here is the difference between this and this, because that is a lot of work, that's a lot of impact, and they aren't being discussed. So right now the problem is that Westpac says all we're doing is building a dock, and Fortis says we have nothing to do with Westpac's proposal. But if they build that dock, you know that if they get these contracts, they're going to build it to the full capacity. And this is our chance now to control or to engage in that process, because they're not going to come back to us later on once it's built and say, oh, we want to make it bigger now. So we know there are impacts locally. People are already concerned about power lines through Delta to get to that facility. You know, and as Owen's discussed, it takes a lot of energy to liquefy natural gas. It's electrically powered. It's just going to be the facility that makes Site C Dam inevitable. You know, at some point, that dam, which is still in the works, will become inevitable because things like this project are going to make it so. So that's the Fortis expansion. So what about those upstream impacts? This is a photo from the Horn River Basin. It's the furthest north basin that Owen talked about. And all those lines are seismic lines, they're exploration roads. That's a well site in the middle. This is what LNG looks like in northeastern BC. The LNG, the gas isn't just sitting there, it's got to be drawn out of the ground. So building these facilities increases the demand.
Whereabouts is it?
This is in the far north of BC in the Horn River Basin. So the pmagn Institute in BC has produced this model where you can put in any one of the projects in BC, you can estimate the upstream impacts. So I did that for the Westpac project. Now, over a 30-year period, I think it would run for longer than that, but over a 30-year period, if the Westpac proposal goes ahead at capacity, it will mean at least, could mean 1,400 new wells or more. almost 24 billion liters of fresh water used in the fracking process. And just as a comparison, that's 9,500 multi-sized swimming pools in water. Of that, in turn, it creates 8.5 billion liters of waste. Another 3,000 swimming pools of volume size of waste. All those upstream emissions, 33 million tons of CO2 emissions added to the atmosphere. At a time when we know we absolutely need to reduce emissions. And this is if the facility is powered by electricity, by clean electricity from the dam. If it's powered by natural gas itself, more emissions obviously, but also more wells because they have to draw in natural gas to power the plant. So it just gets worse. None of this stuff is in the environmental assessment. The Westpac says we're building a dock. It's on the Fraser River. We'll talk about the plants and the fish, and that's it. This is the kind of stuff that we need to say has to be in the assessment. If we don't, no one will. And if we don't, these things we built, and the myth that LNG is this clean, discrete product that has no impact, it's clean burning, is going to be continued. I did the same thing for the So Awesome project because it's current right now. It's somewhat larger than the Westpac project, so the impacts are larger again. We talked about if this facility or if these facilities are powered by electricity, where is that going to come from? This is a photo of the Site C Dam, of the Peace River, in an area that would be covered by the Site C Dam. And even though that dam is still contested, there are First Nations in court right now challenging it. There are other processes it has to go to. BC Hydro is currently clear cutting the whole area to prepare for a reservoir. So this is the exact same location, slightly different angles. You can see that those changes are already happening. Now the dam is not yet inevitable, but the pressure to build this thing is immense. And it's being done to serve the LNG industry. It's obvious to everyone. So what about those local impacts? And they start with the issue of site selection. Owen talked about this, the Society of International Gas Tanker and Terminal Operators. And they have a set of guidelines for where you should build these facilities. And the Westpac proposal fails to meet most of them. It's on a narrow, winding river channel that features a lot of marine traffic, and it's close to population centers. And it's, the facility, this process of site selection should be happening first, but they're building this here because of the forest facility and they're justifying it afterwards. So one of the things we need to say is that in the assessment is that this project needs to have a proper site assessment. Is this actually a good place to build an LNG terminal? That question hasn't been asked or answered yet. You can recall the photos that Owen showed you of LNG terminals in Darwin, Alaska, or Darwin, Australia, and other places. Those are all on the open ocean, basically. And when the industry says that there have been no accidents to date, it's probably because they've been following those guidelines and haven't been building facilities in places like this. A bit more about this location on the Fraser River. So this is the actual shipping channel in the Fraser. It's a two-way channel right now. LNG tankers, I suppose you would say, they would want to shut that alternative traffic down, so it's going to be another impact on the local economy. But most importantly, right now, if Westpac builds this facility, they want to dredge an 18-hectare turning basin in the river. 18 hectares is the size of 30 soccer fields. It's a huge area in the Fraser River. And this is in an inside curve of the river. This is blown up a bit more, so this is the Fortis site. This is where the terminal will be. It's on an inside curve of the river. There's people here who know more about this than I do, and I hope they'll speak on it later. But this is where the river wants to dump sediment as it comes around the corner and slows down.
Can you identify where the jet fuel terminal will be?
That would be, the jet fuel terminal is right there. Right there.
And the Alex Fraser?
Alex Fraser is out of the picture. This is Riverport Flats here in Richmond. This is Fraser Wharfs. So that's the massive tunnel. Peace Island right there. So, as Otto can explain better than I can, this proponent wants to basically dig a hole in the Fraser River that every year is going to fill up the sediment as it comes downstream. Every year or every couple of years it's going to be dug out again. So in some senses it becomes a trap. Instead of that sediment going further down the river and building out the Fraser Delta and the estuary, it falls into a hole that's been dug in the river and every year it's taken out. The river, the Fraser River is pretty much a living organism. It's active, it's dynamic. We barely know what's going on with river hydrology. To be digging these massive holes here into the jet fuel terminal and upstream to the Fraser docks proposal, those have big impacts. This stuff needs to be studied and taken care of. This map is actually from the Fraser River Estuary Management Program, which is now shut down. It shows habitat quality on the Fraser River. Red being the best quality, where basically you should stop and you shouldn't build anything. This is the site of the proposed Westpac terminal right here. Some red-coded